Welcome to the Associated Church Press Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Snyder. This is a space where professionals in Christian media share real stories, successes, challenges, and lessons learned so we can connect, collaborate, and grow together in today's changing media landscape. Welcome. Today we have in the studio for our very first episode, Heidi Thompson, who is a publishing consultant with Shanley Associates. And a proud Associated Church Press board member, our treasurer, actually. So welcome to the program, Heidi.
Thanks, Rebecca. It's good to be here for this first episode.
I know, no pressure, because the first one is always the roughest. And one of the things that we wanted to do was really kind of introduce the how and the why of the podcast and what listeners can expect going forward. And since you are not only a publishing consultant to the stars and to many of our members, but also to ACP, tell us a little bit about how podcasts kind of fit in the marketing world and why someone might want to have a podcast.
I was really surprised to hear, I don't remember the statistics, so I'm not going to quote it exactly, but podcasts have experienced this exponential growth over the last 5 years. And I remember when they first started and nobody was sure exactly what it was or how to use it. Until now, you can often ask people, what's your favorite podcast? And they'll know. They'll have something that they listen to. And it's such a kind of intimate, you feel like you've got voices right with you. And it's a way to feel like you're in conversation with people that you know you're going to learn from, but might never be able to meet and actually have a cup of coffee with. So I think about some of the people that I really love to listen to on podcasts and how I just appreciate that feeling of being in conversation of listening in on a really interesting conversation. And I think that's what we hope this will be like, especially for our Associated Church Press members. The chance to sit in and on a conversation between colleagues who are thinking about and working on some of the same problems that they are. That's one of the pieces of feedback we get every year, is that the Associated Church Press Conference is such a valuable place because people get to meet other people who are really thinking about some of the same things. And maybe this podcast can bring a little bit of that experience year round.
Well, and, I think about our membership, and we have, probably about 50 or 60 members that are in some ways behind the scenes because it's the publication. So we'll be talking to the people producing this work. And we focus a lot on faith, on the journalism of faith. So all of our members are associated with Christian media. And I wanted to ask you, because you have a much longer tenure in ACP than I do, tell me a little bit about what attracts members to ACP. What's the differentiator? I think it's the journalism, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Mm-hmm. So many of our members are publishing. They are the only journalism effort for their faith community. Or one of only a handful. And so they have the responsibility of bringing the story of their community, of the thought leaders, of the events, of the news that's happening for their community, bringing it to their readers, but at the standards of journalism, with integrity and accountability and high quality storytelling. And so I think what Associated Church Press does is it gives people a chance to learn from others, to talk with other people about what it's like to cover the news of a faith community, and to get ideas, and to be in a space where people are covering Christian faith communities from a very wide range of traditions.
Right.
So I think that's maybe what makes Associated Church Press different than some other religious media organizations or other Christian media organizations is just the breadth of the membership. Um,
Yes. And I do love that, and actually, it'll be fun when we have some of our members who run podcasts on the program as well. And our goal is to have every member do an episode, because I think sometimes it's hard for journalists and for people who are doing the work, to tell their story. And so I wanted to
mhm,
ask you, like, why is that important? And especially in the context of faith communities, I feel like those are really strong relationships that those organizations have with their communities. And so in some ways you think, shouldn't that community already know about, this
mm.
news organization? So talk to us about telling your story.
Well, we always learn by telling our own story. Like we learn something about ourselves and about
Mm,
how we're approaching our work. So I think that's one reason to do it. But then just getting back to kind of first principles around journalism, and this holds true for our members, is that journalism practiced on behalf of our Christian faith communities makes our communities more transparent, more accountable, more democratic. Um, it's essential, I think, to the health and growth of the communities that we're part of. Um, and I think that also extends to kind of our life together as the Associated Church Press. We want to be transparent and accountable, and more democratic in how we work together. And
mhm,
so, um, launching this podcast is one way that we can learn from each other. It's one way we can talk about the things that we're thinking about, and it's one way we can get to know each other better.
mhm. Well, and I'm especially excited. So in addition to our members and giving them a platform to tell their stories and to kind of again find out what they think about the work that they're doing, we'll also touch on important topics to Christian media. Like for instance, our annual conference, which will be in Toronto in May, is planning for that is underway, and we'll have discussions with some of our keynotes and some of our presenters, and I feel like that'll give us it gives us another opportunity to connect on a sort of a longer sphere. And so that idea of kind of that spiral learning, you start to introduce an idea or a concept and then come back to it. I think is also another great way that we can learn from one another. And so
Mhm.
from in your work as a publishing consultant, how do you see that kind of not necessarily repetition, but maybe like those spirals or those themes coming out?
I just know from my own learning that it's always helpful to when I'm learning something new or getting introduced to a new space, being able to experience it in different media. So um, there's the conversations we have at the conference. There's reading the newsletter. And now there's this podcast. These are all different ways that we're trying to grasp a pretty big topic. How do we survive as media organizations with all of
Mhm,
the dramatic changes that have happened in publishing over the last 40 years? But also, faith communities in the US are also in a big inflection point. Many of our communities are really dramatically changing, both in size and in who shows up. And so uh as many different ways as we can share what we're learning, talk to each other. Um, I think that's only to our benefit.
yeah, absolutely. So now, do you have any special things that you are hoping we'll cover or do? Do you have any great topics that we should, which
Mm.
this is totally I am springing this on you, so I
Yeah,
have a lot of ideas, but do you have any thoughts on what you'd like to see?
I like to hear, of course, being on the publishing side, I'm gonna love to hear what people are experimenting with in terms of
Mm,
fundraising and subscriptions and advertising sales, all these different ways that we're trying to make our publications more sustainable. right? And it's fun to hear not just the success stories, but also the things that we tried and didn't work. One thing I try to remind myself and the people I work with is that we can't expect that every time we try something, it's going to work. Um,
Right.
we
Then you're
have
not
to,
taking enough risks, I feel like.
yeah,
If it's all
yeah,
working well, you gotta fail.
exactly. And we should talk about the failures because then we're not the only people that are learning from them.
All right. So it sounds like if anybody's listening, if you have a failure you want to bring to the group, we're here for you. But also, I think we want to hear what you're thinking about and what you're hoping to innovate around and your success stories. So we're here for it all. And I think it'll be just another way that we're connecting Christian media professionals or professionals in Christian media, and really serving our mission to be that convener and connector across different publications, different denominations, all trying to bring the stories of their faith communities to life. So,
Mm.
Heidi, thank you so much for coming and talking to us today.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. I'm sure we'll have you back on at
Yeah, I
some
feel
point
like I should
because,
come back and talk about a big failure some point. Like if I put the challenge out, I should be willing to do it, right? So
all
we'll have
right,
to
well,
get
you
that on the
heard it here
calendar.
first. Heidi will come back and talk about the biggest fails she's had, which will be a fun conversation. And I'm really looking forward to it. But thank
All
you
right.
so much for coming to join us on our inaugural episode.
Thank you.